Welcome to Flavor Country. It's time to talk about Rio Blast, and I'm not even going to try to do a Texas accent because, I'm not even close to being from Texas. Connecticut, California, North Carolina, check those boxes off, but yeah. All right. Rio Blast. Who the heck is Rio Blast? One of the more, shall I say, bizarre, but kind of slightly controversial Masters of the Universe figures, and misunderstood. That's actually a better word. Misunderstood Masters of the Universe figures. Let's go with that, because, yeah, he's not controversial. He's misunderstood, but he was there. He was there in the vintage line. He was kind of a middle of the pack release, coming out not at the tail end, not at the very beginning, and he featured a lot of new tooling because he came out at the height of Masters of the Universe's popularity in the 80s when they could afford to fully tool figures because they were selling a lot of figures. Funny how tooling and sales relate. Now, Rio Blast did become a bit of a fan favorite, especially if you were one of the sort of newer fans that came on board halfway through the line, and he became kind of your guy. While he never made it into the 2000X series, there was a really cool Staction figure released from the Horseman that updated him with kind of more tech and, more cowboy mustachy stuff. I mean, come on, handlebar mustaches. Now, part of the misunderstanding, why he's misunderstood, is the Bravestarr connection. There are people that are convinced that either A, he's a ripoff of Bravestarr, or B, he was just left over from the Mattel Bravestarr line, or he was, meant to be part of this line. Well, yeah, Rio Blast and Bravestarr aesthetically do have similarities. They're both kind of cowboy themed, and they both have guns, and they're both space cowboys-ish, I guess. But that's about it. So, okay, maybe that's not it. They are factually both tied to Filmation, although Bravestarr had his own TV show and Rio Blast never appeared in the Masters of the Universe show. Well, sort of. We'll get to that at the end. So, saying that they're related in that sense, or in the fact that Mattel licensed the Bravestarr line, Mattel didn't own Bravestarr, unlike Masters of the Universe, which it created. So you can't really group all of the Filmation characters and say that Mattel has rights to all of them. Even in the modern line, when we gained rights. Bravestarr was a very big line for Mattel back in the 80s, but much like DC Comics or WWE, it's a licensed brand that they paid royalties to make. It was not a homegrown brand. And again, yes, Masters of the Universe, She-Ra, Bravestarr were all Filmation brands as well, and that's kind of where the confusion lies. So even when we had rights to do characters from the Filmation Masters of the Universe series, this didn't mean that we could suddenly do characters from all of Filmation. I mean, we certainly weren't doing Gilligan's Planet action figures anytime soon, or at all. So that's kind of where the confusion lay, the Filmation and Mattel connection. So, no, Rio Blast is not a Bravestarr character that got shuttled off into He-Man. In fact, Rio Blast started off looking very different. He didn't have those cowboy-esque design elements. He did have the guns that popped out, but the cowboy concept was added sort of late in the game. Now, well, you could say he's a cowboy. He doesn't wear a hat the way, Bravestarr does, or, Walker Texas Ranger. I mean, this is a fan custom, obviously. It does kind of look cool. But Motu was a brand that was sort of about anyone can be included. I mean, it had warriors, it had ninjas, it had firemen with robotic elephant heads. Okay, yeah, for a lack of better word. And, everybody is welcome, as Val Staples on the He-Man podcast would say. Masters of the Universe should welcome all designs, unless, of course, you're Mighty Spector, when then you should be hated because you don't look anything like a Masters of the Universe toy, but Rio Blast and Ninjor sure do. Yeah, that was kind of always my argument. If it's supposed to be so welcoming, why is it not so welcoming? As far as cowboy themes, cowboy toys are some of the best-selling toys to children of all time. I mean, going back to the 1950s when plastic injected molding first came out and, kids could play with plastic toys as opposed to metal or wood. And theming popular characters with a cowboy motif basically is like printing your own money because cowboy, astronaut, pirate, these are very, very popular themes for children toys, which is why you see lots and lots of characters wearing cowboy hats. And there are cowboy characters that have predated Rio Blast, and there are cowboy characters that have been created after Rio Blast. We will always have cowboy toys. So having kind of your token cowboy-esque character in Motu isn't because it was left over from Bravestarr, it's because cowboys sell really well to kids. So, yeah. Now, Rio Blast for Masters of the Universe Classic fell kind of somewhere between that deluxe figure like Ram Man and your basic figure like Man-at-Arms, because he had a lot of piece count. But we managed to get him as a basic figure, and I'm pretty proud of that. I think if he was released in Origins today, he would probably be in their deluxe assortment, much like Snout Spout was, which, again, was a basic figure back in the day. But hey, margin must be made, and price points must be diverse in order to land a planogram space and have enough SKUs to actually hold on to that planogram space. Now, the original Rio Blast figure from the 80s had an action feature built in, where all of the guns would actually pop out of empty cavities inside of the figure. And in the Classics line, we were able to kind of pay homage to this and recreate it simply by having you snap on the different parts. We couldn't actually tool up completely original chest with a cavity inside that the guns could be in. But hey, leave it to those packaging engineers to find a way to get all those pieces inside of a basic figure. And whether you wanted to display him with his guns out or guns in, he wound up being a really cool looking figure. And again, handlebar mustaches, Bespin guards. Anytime you can get a handlebar mustache on a character, that's pretty awesome. And he had a really cool piece count, especially for a basic figure. I mean, there was price value with this guy. So while he is definitely not connected to Bravestarr, I understand where fans come from, but he didn't appear on the Filmation series, unlike this guy here, Colonel Blast, who was a Horde member in the She-Ra series, which took Rio Blast's action feature and, well, used it. So this was basically the closest Rio Blast ever came to appearing in the animation, was a character that sort of mimicked or copied the action feature because, well, they were working hard to get a lot of the characters into the She-Ra series, like how Snout Spout and the Rock Men appeared in She-Ra, not He-Man. So, whether you consider Rio Blast a Motu character, a cowboy character, or a Bravestarr ripoff, hey, Rio Blast is all about defending your freedom to think whatever you want, even if you're factually incorrect.